So welcome to our Whoa Week session. Trisha's been calling it that. And I'm like, I love that. I got to adopt that. Our Whoa Week session on program assessment, which is one of the things that's sort of a bigger change for us this time. But where we want you to start, if you are just coming in, is, and I guess if you're watching the recording, do this in the recording too. We'll make sure you can do that as well, because it's assessment and it helps us. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the slide. You're going to grab one of the little light blue shapes and you are going to drag it into the box where you feel like you are right now, knowing nothing at this point, or mostly nothing about program assessment. And so we will do that. And then we will see where you fall at the end of the time. Oh, a few people, I can guess maybe who one of those confident people is. So that would be very, very good. All right. So let me now, it looks like our crew here has done this. All right. So let me figure something out. There's that. Let me see if I can erase the annotation. Let's see. Really quick. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, yikes. So let's do, this is the slide deck that I shared at the all faculty meeting. I'm going to do the very, very quick version of this just to give us some context here. So this year we are hashtag strategic assessment. And this is where we want you to be thinking about what we're doing. So when we have a student in our class, we tend to think about them as a student in our class and what do they need from our class and from us to learn our content. Over the time that we have been evolving assessment, we went from when we initially were doing class assessment, which we do all the time anyway, but just not in terms of what we call big A assessment, not what we report to assessment. And this was when we just do all of our little individual assessments and all of our little student learning improvements and all the things we do typically to improve the experience of students in our classes. And of course, that shouldn't change. But we're talking about assessment here as the assessment program of the college. Over the last number of years, we've shifted into doing many, many more common course assessments, where now groups of faculty are thinking about what is it students really need out of their class, prioritizing items, and doing their larger scale assessments in that space. The place we are moving to this year is now program assessment. So instead of me just thinking about Psych 101, now I need to think about all of the courses in my program and how they sort of all come together. And how are we achieving when we're looking at course assessment, also measuring where students are with our with our program level outcomes. So that's what this session is going to be about. There will be some extra content on these slides. We will share the slide deck with you. The session is also being recorded. So if you can't necessarily read all the things on there, that's okay. But we'll really be thinking about how we are thoughtfully going to align course assessment to support our program outcomes. We've already done our pre-poll. So here is where we are at. Somebody else added something. Oops, hold on. I'm accidentally on my annotation tool. Let me close my annotation tool. There we go. All right. Okay, somebody's less confident. That's okay. That's what I kind of expect you to be less confident. Hopefully by the end, you'll feel more confident. So let's think about what program assessment really does. Well, we're looking at student learning outcomes. Not surprising. That's any type of assessment. But what we're looking at is how, when we are in the space of our courses, we can also measure student performance against our program goals. And the whole idea is that we're going to be doing this in an aligned fashion, so everything is sort of cascading. There's faculty involvement. We really want faculty to be engaging in these conversations with each other. I love talking to my colleagues about what students need to be getting out of the course that we share in common, now we're just going to step it up and have those conversations broader, because we want students to have a great learning experience, and we want them to be, career ready or, university ready. We also are beholden to our accreditor, HLC, and some of our specialized accreditors to ensure that we are maintaining and improving program quality and effectiveness. And that's what this allows us to do. So what's going to happen with program mapping? And I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to show it. So when we're talking about program mapping, the steps that faculty will go through is they will find their program requirements. And I know it's really small here to read, so I'll read a little bit of this to you. You're going to either find your program in the CCTA, or I'm going to show you how I used AI to do this basically for you. So I'm happy to build some of this mapping as well. Once it's structured, you're going to update a spreadsheet where you're going to do this alignment of courses and programs. You are going to think about, for just a small selection of your courses, where are students with the information? Are they being introduced to it for the first time? Are you reinforcing that learning? Or should they have met that outcome by the time that they are in that course? And then you're going to think, how do our course competencies play a role? And that's going to provide the structure then later for us to think about, how do our course assessments help us navigate this information? So I want to jump right now actually into looking at what this means and how this works. Then we'll kind of come back to it, because it's difficult to think about in the abstract. I knew Karen was planning to come to this session, so I used biological sciences as one of our programs. And then Roxanne and I were in a session with our business and information technology faculty, and Kendra Swenson was asking about her program. So hers is the other one that I have demonstrated. So what we're going to do now, and I need to just change how I'm going to do this so you can see everything here. So what we've created is a template, and in the next month or so, we are going to be applying this to programs, and we're going to be making edits to make sure this system works. We may make edits across all of them. I'm actually we don't need to see the top part of this. I can kind of zoom in. We may need to make edits just for individual programs. So there's going to be a lot of conversation here. So this is the Associate in Science, emphasis in biological sciences. So this is one of our guided pathways programs. And you can see I filled in the program name. I've got the program description in here. I put Karen and Justin's names in there as our department chair and our department assessment coordinator, the dean, and I indicated that this was updated on the 16th. On the left-hand side, you're going to see all of the program learning outcomes entered in here. There's space for ILOs in the bottom, but we're not really going to talk about ILOs right now. We're going to talk mostly about program outcomes. And then along the top are all of the courses. There is going to be a color-coded key that tells you what these courses are. So this darker red means these are courses that are required for this program, and they are what I'm calling controlled by this program. This is a biological sciences program. They control these classes. These next set of classes are also required classes, but they are, I refer to them as delegated. They are courses outside of the sphere of influence of this particular program. So they're part of the program, but the biological sciences faculty don't have really any direct control over how these courses are taught. So they're on the program map, but they're, special category. Next on this particular one are the restrictive electives. These are also this is in the controlled category. So these are bio prefix classes that are elective classes. And then lastly, what I added in here are classes that are not mapped. They are biology classes being taught at GCC, but they're not part of this official program, but they're in here because we are going to be thinking about kind of course assessment holistically, and they are biology courses that should be assessed, even if they're not contributing to the program. And then there's a co-curricular section. I put biotech in here. just for fun. All right. So what you'll see here in this section is this is what the Maricopa Program Bank has said is the relationship between a course and a PLO. So all of these should be serving PLO number 1. And this is a particularly interesting program in that almost everything serves everything. As you get kind of down to the bottom, then you'll see it changes a little bit. So what the role of the faculty will be is to answer a couple questions. They're going to come in and they're going to say, okay, is this PLO being introduced in Bio 181? Is it being reinforced? Should students have met this program outcome in this class? Is this a delegated course, so it's out of our sphere of influence? Or is it not mapped at all? Those other classes in biology that we saw at the far right-hand side of the spreadsheet. Now, this would be pretty easy to do. Bio 181 is the first class they take. This is going to have to be introduced for everybody. So the group would just come in and they would just say introduced. By Bio 182, this is either going to be reinforced, or maybe they're going to think this is at the point at which they should have met this outcome. So maybe I'm going to say they should have it by then. Here, really, you're going to say it's delegated, not my responsibility, out of my sphere of influence. If you really wanted to, you could say, I think it's being introduced and so on, but that's essentially what you're going to do. Yes, by the end of the course. Great question, Karen. So this would be by the end of the course, where should students be? Now, over here, I mean, these are restrictive electives, which means that students may or may not take them. So they shouldn't be the things we focus on the most, because we have no idea if they're going to take 201 or 220 or 205. But again, you can come in and you can say, well, where do I think this falls in supporting this PLO? Do the same thing. And so once the spreadsheet is kind of designed, hopefully this is a pretty straightforward task. And all we're doing is we're relying on the expertise of faculty to be making these decisions. So if you say that if I take Bio 202, I should be at a point that I have met this PLO, I'm going to say, great, I trust you. So that's what you're going to do. Now, there's one other thing that we want to, and then over here, these would just be not mapped because they're not part of this program. But again, they're bio prefix classes, so they're on the spreadsheet. Now, the next thing is for the required classes, what we really want to think about is the connection between our course competencies and these PLOs. So where within our course competencies are we achieving these PLOs? So you could go in as a Bio 181 instructor and look at your course competencies and figure it out. I am not a Bio 101 instructor or 181 instructor, and I don't know. But my good friend ChatGPT might know. So I dropped, and let me say, Karen, oh my goodness, the 29 course competencies from Bio 181 into ChatGPT. And I said, how do you think they map to the program outcomes? And ChatGPT gave me what it thought was the answer. I also asked it which program or which course competencies weren't included anywhere in the program, and it listed those two. So then the idea would be I would come in right in here. I'd come over here and I would swap this X out for that. And now I know that for PLO number 1, course competencies 7, 8, 9, and 18 should help introduce that outcome in that class. And I do that for these 2 items. If you want to do it somewhere else, you can. You don't need to. We mostly, again, care about the required items because those are the ones that we can guarantee students in the program are taking. We're not going to do it for the delegated items unless you're a super high achiever and you want to go talk to chemistry. And that's what you're doing here. If you want to see all the fun, I built all of this in a little less than an hour last night in ChatGPT. if you come in, you'll have access to the spreadsheet. If you come in here, you can actually read through all of the prompts and all of the outcomes. I just PDF'd a whole bunch of different pages, dropped them in, asked ChatGPT to analyze it. I, of course, would rely on our biology faculty to verify the accuracy of this, but this was my quick and dirty draft. So this is an example here. Let me move to another example of a CTE program and a different type of degree, and one that has a stackable credential. So here's management. This is the Associates Applied Science and Management. You can see the top part's very similar. The one thing that's been added is a stackable credential. So there is a certificate of completion in management that is almost entirely encapsulated in the AAS degree. So you're not going to do a program map of the CCL, because if you assess the AAS, you assess the CCL. So anytime there might be stackable credentials, they'll just get noted in here. I did the exact same thing here as I did in the biology tab. You're going to see the controlled classes here in red. You're going to see other required classes that are outside of management in this light red. You're going to see restrictive electives in yellow. And then they don't have any not mapped classes. All of the management classes show up here. But what they do have is a whole bunch of restricted electives that are also delegated. You'll also notice their mapping is very different, far fewer X's in this version than in the biology version. And so what they will do over there in management is the same thing. This one likely will be introduced all the way down because it's the first class they take. This one will either be reinforced or met. They will think through what course competencies, they'll drop them in here. And like we talked about in the bio page, they will identify that these are delegated. You know, they can choose to do this over here if they want, and they can say that these are delegated as well. Now, one thing I realized I made a mistake about is there's no X here. The IC doesn't say that this class supports this PLO, so I actually don't do anything right here because it's not relevant. I only need to answer these questions where there are X's, because those are the only things where the IC has said this course supports that PLO. Now, if you disagree with anything here, go talk to your IC and see about changing things. But yes, so on your program maps, you're only paying attention to any spot where an X already exists. So again, very, very similar to what we did before. And then this is essentially our program mapping process. So now let me swap back here. Oops, I'm gonna have to make this. I'm getting a few of you on the screen. Apologies for that as I move things around. You got a little starring role there. So as we wrap up, and you're welcome to stay longer during kind of our Q&A, but other things I want you to know about this process, it's going to be a very tailored approach. So we are going to customize this for what you need. So we will have as many meetings as we need with as many program faculty or directors or individuals as we need to do this. We're going to provide ongoing support, sessions like this, resources, and the whole idea is this is going to be streamlined. Now we are double dipping course and program. So now when you do course assessment, you are also assessing your program. So it's not meant to really provide or require a lot of extra work. And hopefully watching what I showed you on that demonstration will make you realize that program mapping, which might have sounded really intimidating, hopefully not so intimidating. So this is, you might have noticed, this is an AI generated slide deck. As Pam likes to say, ChatGPT is my BFF, although this is gamma.app, not ChatGPT. This is a super goofy picture. He doesn't, I guess he does have 5 fingers, but I left it in. But it's, the prompt was create an AI image of somebody asking a question for this Q&A. So here's somebody asking a question. So what I would like is for you to take a little bit of time to think about how program assessment might benefit your department. We also want to hear potential challenges, obstacles, all of that. Because when we were in with business and Kendra's like, I've got 25 programs, not really 25, but she's got a lot, like, how am I going to do this? That allowed us to go do a deep dive into at least start with the management program and figure out how it's all going to work. And I'm sure that when she sees this, she will be, much reassured. But we can only do that as we respond. So we're going to be rolling this out, but we're going to have to be adjusting as needed. And then in a few minutes, we can start early, but we will have sort of our official Q&A time. If anybody wants to ask questions, we want to dive deep. Or if you're like, I got what I needed, it's the Friday of Woe Week and I need to scoot to go do other things because my syllabus isn't quite ready, please go do that. So just a couple last things, then we will move on. So what we do ask is that you embrace this process. So come to program assessment with an open mind. I think you're going to be really excited because we all love our students. We love working with our colleagues. We love thinking about how we are providing them, what we need to provide them. And by doing that, we really can engage in important conversations with each other. We will be here to seek guidance and provide personalized support to the extent that you need it. Lots of resources will be available. So we haven't built out on Gaucho all of the program mapping resources yet, but they are coming. And we want, most importantly, for everybody to focus on the impact. We want this to be meaningful. We want this to help you improve and enhance your student learning outcomes. So if you feel like what you're doing is not achieving that goal, then we want to find a way to work with you to make sure that happens. Yes, some of the pictures are kind of funny. I did have to take out some of the pictures and replace them with graphics because they were a little bit goofy. AI, it's not quite there yet. All right, so we're going to have about 5 minutes left of our main session. And then, of course, anytime that you all want, I will stop the recording before we kind of get into Q&A. But what I would like, before we even get into Q&A, I would like you to drop into our now post-presentation poll. Here it is. We got to update this. I see some of you have done this already. So now you're going to grab the dark blue little graphic and drag it where you think it needs to go so that you can see where you're at. I see that they're coming in on that slide. It might take, sometimes it takes a minute on this side to do that. But yes, feel free to move things around. It's gonna take a moment. I don't know. I'll be able, oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Now we lost a few people, but still we got more in the confidence section than we did down below, and that's what makes me happy. On that note, I am going to end the recording, but we will continue to talk as much as we want. And if you're like, I am so excited, I cannot wait to map my program, Julie, will you please build me a spreadsheet? I think what we're going to, you can send me an email, but I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to put together a Google form. And we're going to be like, who's ready to go? Submit your program. Julie will build it. She'll send it out and you can start. So that way we can get maybe a little bit of a staggered deployment of this and get that groundswell of faculty saying, this was so much fun. Everybody should do it. All right. And on that note, let me come in here. And again, thank you very much. Recording stopped, but stay and chat. Yeah, so Karen, so let me pop over back here. I didn't talk about it, but Karen in the chat is saying, you might need to change things. So what everybody's going to have in their spreadsheet is what I call curriculum notes. So just like there's in your course assessment, that's little a assessment, and there's like submit a report to us, which is, big A assessment. There's little c curriculum, which is the curriculum that we can control within our classes. There's big C curriculum that is, what's happening in the through the ICs, through the district. So one of the things that I added into the spreadsheet is a place where faculty, when they're doing this, could make a note and be like, oh, there's maybe there's an issue with a course, maybe there's issue with a program. I think we should do this thing or that thing. I'm talking about it at the college, or I want to go to the district. And my hope is that this will spur conversations in the ICs. So for example, yeah, when I looked at this and I thought, there's sort of 2 required classes here. I'm not saying that biological sciences is going to change anything. It was interesting to me. But maybe when then you're looking at how some of these course competencies align, maybe you're like, oh, maybe that should be updated. My hope is that going through this process leads to conversations in the IC, whether the IC adopts it or not. But if we don't really look holistically, we may not notice what's going on. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. And Karen, if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I thought, like, what a great piece of evidence for accreditation, because they always say, how are you changing curriculum? And most of the curriculum that we're changing, we're saying, well, I'm changing this in my class, or we updated this part of our course. But if we could say our assessment process led to a curriculum change district-wide, that is really, really powerful. Oh, yes, I see that Roxanne answered the question from Michelle. Yes, each program would only have one of these. And like the management one, you might have something stackable. You might even have multiple CCLs. In psychology, we have our psych degree. We also have a CCL, that's our developmental disabilities. That is a very, very different program from the psychology program. So like that's a case where that program director should be doing this process just for their CCL. So we will be working individually with faculty around like what needs to be part of this and maybe what's sort of stackable. Our goal is to get all of our programs curriculum mapped. I mean, obviously they're already curriculum mapped in a way through our ICs, but just this extra level of thought. And so that's the goal over the course of this semester, depending on how many there are into next semester. But yeah, like this was a question that Kendra asked. She's got like 6 CCLs and 4 AAs. And she's like, do I have to do this for all of them? So that would be where we would sit down and we would look at where things align, where they stack, what things need to be unique. And maybe with something like that, we would say, okay, let's do one this year, one next, so we don't want to overburden faculty. So if there happen to be faculty who oversee a lot of programs, because some of our areas have a lot of programs, then we want to be sensitive to that. But what we're hoping, or what I'm hoping, is that we find great examples of, I feel like the guided pathways programs are probably going to be relatively easy to do this process with. Maybe, some of our other programs are going to get a little bit more complicated, and that's where we need to kind of work through dropping it into this format and seeing how it adjusts. For those of you who were in the DAC meeting, things changed from when I kind of initially showed this to when I just dropped it in here, because I started to put things in. I'm like, we need some changes. So part of why I'm hoping to have faculty ask for these to be shared, or that they want their programs looked at, because then we can figure out where the gaps in our instructions are and where we need to do certain things. Maybe I should have actually kept the recording on, because those were some good things to chat about, but that's okay. You got the special event because you came. Everybody else is gonna miss out. Oh, actually, maybe not. Perfect. I just realized I clicked stop, but then I didn't click the second stop. So it's still recording. Wonderful. So we're going to keep it recording in case any other questions come in, because now those were great questions. Anyone else have burning questions? I have to say, I found this so oddly satisfying making pretty spreadsheets and thinking about this. And like, these are not even my programs. I didn't even do, I mean, psychology would be so easy compared to some of these, but it was fat. Like, I'm totally loving this. I'm learning so much. Roxanne called me a nerd in the chat. For those of you who are watching the recording, I own that totally. Nerd, geek, whatever. I can start talking about the scientific method. My kids always love that. So I need one of those like cups that says there's a spreadsheet for that. Because there really is a spreadsheet for everything. That and my AI, between spreadsheets and my chat GPT, I'm all good. This has nothing to do with this, but I'm still going to say it before I stop the recording. So to do this presentation, I was running behind yesterday. I was driving home at 8 o'clock after our adjunct meeting, and I'm like, I have to build the slide deck. So I turned on ChatGPT and I said, I need to build a slide deck on this topic, ask me questions. In the course of the 25 minutes it took me to go home, I talked through everything I wanted in the slide deck. It built a script for me. It built like an outline of the slides. When I got home, I grabbed what it had created. I dropped it into Gamma. It created the slide deck, changed things around a little bit. I had to obviously go in and fix some things here and there. And within like the 25 minutes of me talking to ChatGPT and maybe an hour, because I hadn't actually really used Gamma. That was like really the first time I used Gamma. About an hour in Gamma, I had the whole thing done. When I built the ILO one, I took the transcripts of all of the videos that are on Gaucho, upload them into ChatGPT. I said, organize this into a structured presentation with good flow. I took that, dropped it in Gamma, and that's what created that slide deck. So there's a lot of power in these tools if we use them for the right things. And that was a perfect example of doing it. And then, of course, I never could have created these spreadsheets in the time that I did if I wasn't doing everything in that space. And of course, double check your work, it's ChatGPT. But there's my little Go AI plug for the day. And on that note, I will stop the recording. But that was the bonus thing you got if you stayed all the way for the recording or all the way in this meeting.